Mahaloy day, everyone. Welcome to another live digital kava session on the Polynesianized podcast. I'm Masi from New Zealand, uh, in Manurewa. Another beautiful Friday evening here. We are coming live to you on YouTube, Facebook, Patreon, X, and I think that's everything. But very grateful
Instagram.
to and Instagram. There we go. There we go. Thanks, Dua. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here on this Friday, your Thursday, Dua. How's everything going on your side of the world?
Yes, been a great day. We're excited. One day closer to Friday, and we're getting ready to go camping. So it's going to be a fun weekend for the family. We're going to go up to Mount Charleston. It's a lot cooler. The weather's cooled down quite a bit here in Vegas, and obviously, when you go up the mountain, the temperature drops a little bit more. So we'll take some heaters and stuff just to be safe. But it's been a great week, and looking forward to the weekend.
So from now on, going to the winter months in the U.S., it's gonna be actually be really that's the good weather for Vegas time, right?
This is the great weather for Vegas right now. I think it was in the 70s today. You
Mm,
know,
mm,
dry weather. The places like Phoenix. This is when living in the desert is fun, right?
yeah,
This is the
yeah.
good time of the year.
Nice, nice, Dua. Nice, Dua. All right, what do we have for the program today, Dua? What we got? Are we gonna just start out where we finish? What you got for us?
Yes. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back and complete the discussion we were having on the first contact, the Samoa case, right? We got through about half of the
Hmm.
excerpts that we read through last time and kind of finished that off. That's just the part two of that. And once again, we're just going to look at some of the references in the book. Once again, just to refresh those who saw our part one. This is a collection of first contact European contact with Ha'amoa,
Hmm.
and it does give us some insight into the relationship between Ha'amoa, Tonga, Eastern Polynesia, and other areas as well, like Fiji. So we're really just tapping into those recordings of history and trying to see what we can understand, have some discussions, throw some ideas back and forth. So that's really what we're going to go into. Just a quick reminder, if you're a paying member of the channel supporting through a monthly contribution, we will typically pull up your comments, right? That's one of
Yeah.
the ways we recognize our paying members on the channel. There's a $5 or a $10 monthly subscription in there. Also, there's the super chats. If you want to make a comment on super chats, do so. We make an effort to make sure we recognize super chat contributors. If you
Hmm.
have a specific question or comment you want to make sure we bring up, or if you just want to throw in a digital kava bag to the kava session,
Yes,
that's one
sir.
great way to make a contribution. True to form, we want to recognize Mel Venu, one of our paying
Yes.
members
Malo,
on
Mel.
the channel. Malo Opito Mel. She says, Malo Tua and Fale. Appreciate it, Mel. Thank you for all your support. Mel has been very, very kind and sharing some of the research she's done
Mm,
in digging into her family history, reading and making connections,
mm,
especially from the Tokelau perspective. We've
hmm.
had one program going over some of her research.
Yes.
She's also
Yeah.
shared some additional documents that we'll kind of get into. So thank you for the support, Mel. Thank you for the information. So really
Nice.
appreciate that. All right. We have first, usually we recognize Masi, we have our regulars. Maybe we should also take a time for Nikki Ziegler. We've never had her join, but she says hi.
Welcome, welcome,
Welcome,
Nikki.
welcome to the live digital kava session, Nikki.
Yep.
So with that being said, Mr. Atero, I'm gonna pull up the let me find the window here and we'll jump right
Let's go. Let's go.
into the content here. Let me
All
see.
right. And you want me to start us off?
Yes. I'm just wondering here if there's a way that I can hide some of these stuff here. We'll see. Let's try that view. No. Well, we can shrink it. There we go. There we
There we
go.
go. Beautiful, beautiful. All
And
right. So we left off at 14. Now we're in excerpt 15. All
yes, let
right.
me do this. Let me zoom in just a little bit. Uh, Sweet. Can you see that? Does that help a little bit better?
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay,
That's
so
good.
we're on excerpt 15. You want to kick us off, Mr. Atero?
Yes, sir. The expedition observed Samoans wearing colored beads, prompting speculation about their origin and how they were acquired through regional trade networks. We saw a few of the natives with blue, mulberry, and other colored beads about their necks, and we understood that they got them from Cook at Tongatapu. Without adding anything further, Edwards indicates that he stood southwards and was again making for Tonga. This observation confirms the circulation of European goods via Tonga, highlighting the role of inter-island trade in, in disseminating items before direct Samoan European content. Any thoughts or additions there, Dua?
Yeah, I mean, once again, this theme is popping up multiple times, right? They're having these different Europeans come to Ha'amoa, and all of them are seeing these beads, right? These different European contacts, and they're all asking the same thing, like, how did you get those beads? Those are European beads, and they all learn or make the connection. These are beads that are coming from Tonga, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
once again, as we kind of read in the earlier parts, the Tongans that are in Ha'amoa are saying, hey, these people haven't met Europeans yet, right?
correct.
They don't have that understanding. And the Europeans is interesting. They always, when they reference the big boats, they reference it to the Tongans, which kind of goes along that the Tongans are kind of like the cohesive group that's doing a lot of the long distance voyaging and trade. So that's kind of what I got from that, Mr.
Mm.
Aroa. Mr. Aotearoa, any thoughts on that?
Nope. I mean, the Europeans are probably just in awe with the Polynesian network with trading amongst their goods before making first contact with Ha'amoa by the Europeans. So pretty cool and
Yeah,
good recordings to see here to kind of understand that we were a vast network of trading, and in order to have a vast network of trading in the Pacific, you've got to have a nation in order to do that. That's just me
exactly.
thinking out loud.
Yeah,
Just me thinking out
100%.
loud.
And this is probably one of the reasons that Captain Cook referred to Polynesia as a nation is
Mm,
as he's going around and he's leaving stuff in different places, he's probably also observing what this stuff is showing up and moving around, and this knowledge about them is moving around, and it's not from him and his expeditions. He probably makes the connection that these are the natives themselves traveling, and though he's trying to discover the islands,
hmm
obviously he can tell, well, these natives already know all the islands because they're moving all about with each other, and that's why they had that Tahitian guy come with them, right? Because
Yeah,
Tahiti seems to have a lot of interest from the Europeans and earlier contact with the Europeans, and they leverage some of the Tahitians to help them not only communicate but to find additional islands out in the ocean.
cool. Yep.
All right,
Nice.
next one here, excerpt 16. This is on page 77. It says Kotzebue's expedition anchored near Manono, that island. Remember, has some of
hmm
the
Be- Between Upolu and Savai.
yes, and it has the Sia Heulupe there, the star
hmm
mounds. There's quite a
hmm
few on Manono Island, where a chief boarded the ship, initiating interactions that revealed cultural and linguistics influences from Tonga.
mm
The
Mm.
chief came on board with three attendants and asked for the Eiki. Very
Ah.
interesting, right?
Mm. Mm.
He was not tattooed, as Cutsby noted, which could indicate either that he was the supreme chief of Tonga, the Tu'i Tonga, visiting Samoa. Hey, wait a minute. I thought, interesting. The
Mm-hmm.
word that has been given here for chief was Tongan, Eiki,
Yeah. Yeah. Not
which is
Ali.
not Ali'i,
Eiki. Yeah.
yes, which is doubtful, or a very high ranking Samoan chief, such as Tamafainga, Kramer, 1995. Both, both advanced the hypothesis. Tamafainga indeed reigned over Manono at that time. Shortly after this meeting, Tamafainga was succeeded by Marietoa Vaininupo, who
Mm-hmm.
himself received the pioneer missionary John Williams in 1830. No one could touch these chiefs, these very high chiefs, and make them bleed. As
Tuitonga
always,
status.
yeah, yes, because it's the toto, even, right?
Yes.
It's the Eiki. That's what makes you Eiki. Remember, we spoke with
It's your
Tiasi
blood.
Ilayu that the original definition of Eiki was Tuitonga blood,
Yes.
right? Um, Received the pioneer missionary John Williams. No one could touch these very high chiefs and make them bleed, as always happened during tattooing.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing applied to the Tu'i Manua, the highest chief of the Manua group of Samoan Islands. The use of Tongan speech to foreigners, something which other visitors to Samoa also noted in the same period, as we shall see, may be due to the fact the Tongan language was, to the Samoans, the language of foreigners, given the
Mm-hmm.
frequent Tongan visits and the prestige associated with Tongan culture in Samoan society.
Mm.
All right,
Mm.
Mr.
All right.
Aotearoa, what are your thoughts?
Couple things here, right? It suggests that first we were like what you said, we were very intertwined, and I'm just pulling the parallels here because the common I thought process. Many of our Samoan brothers and sisters right now, when you have a matai, is a lot of them do get the tattoo. They're saying that it was a form of tattooing. Now we're seeing now we're seeing a close thing here that Tupo the first had a tattoo, but he was from the Tuikang Polu. But a lot of the Tuitonga, it was not given the tattooing protocols because of the blood, right? It was sacred blood. So some parallels here that this was must be a very achy person that got up on the European ship that didn't have any tattoos, and he was probably surrounded maybe with his attendants that were probably tattooed. So it to me, it just confirmed my belief with the tatao or the tatao they use today that it was just a thing of for warriors. And
Mhm.
maybe some navigators, I believe maybe some masterful navigators maybe were tatted in their body, but it wasn't.
Tufungas, right? Not Aikis.
y-
The Tufunga guys may have had a lot of
yes,
tattoos.
yes, but not somebody of really high status. That's what I'm trying to say. So, you know, tattooing is an important part of our culture, but it's not the most important thing. That's just me. I don't know. That's just me thinking out loud there. And obviously, not everyone, not all the high Akis were tattooed, all the way up to the Akis that were living in Ha'amoa. So that's just me. Just kind of quick thoughts on that one. What's your thoughts, Dua?
Yeah, I'm just going to highlight here, right?
Hmm.
The fact that he didn't have tattoos meant he was of high rank, right? So they thought, hey, maybe the Tuitonga, but also a very high rank in Ha'amoa
Yeah.
as well, right? Where they're saying this Tamafainga guy, who is very high ranking in Samoa, was the same guy who they said didn't have tattoos.
Mm.
And the reason why is because they're Eiki. And that's what they ask for, right?
Yeah.
They come on board and they ask for the Eiki. Who's in
Mm.
charge? Who's the
Mhm.
person in charge? When they go on and they're asking who's the person in charge, they use the term Eiki, and they're looking because that's where status comes from, where we've always made this discussion, right?
Mhm.
And here we're hearing so many of our brothers and sisters in Ha'amoa saying the Eiki comes from Ha'amoa, and that's what made the Tu'itonga high ranked. Well, we're
Correct.
seeing it a different perspective here. Before colonization, before the academics came in, that the rank of association was who has Eiki blood or close to the Tuitonga is what mattered, right? And we're also having, like you said, a different perception on tattooing,
Yeah.
right? We're always hearing like, oh, tattoo is like this. That's what made you a chief. And I'm like, well, that's
Yeah.
not what we're seeing here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the big term for it is it's not that tattooing is evil or whatever. What they said was the problem with tattooing is it causes blood to come out. Remember, we read that other paragraph that when the French guy struck the high chief or the chief that was on board, they specifically said and made him bleed.
Yes.
And it's the fact that they made him bleed that made that action
Hostile.
unacceptable.
Yes. Made them
Yes,
hostile towards the Europeans.
towards
Yeah.
the European guy. So once again, we're seeing a lot of interesting things here. And then to make it even further, um, you couldn't make any of those bleed because they were achy. And look,
Same
who did
thing
they?
applied to the Tui Manua,
There we go.
the highest chief of Manua group of the
Right.
Samoan Island. Yep.
So I find that very very interesting.
Mm.
Another comment looks like on Mel says that Tamafainga had 99 wives. I did not know that. Dude, he should have just
Mm.
made it 100 already. Why come so close?
No, I think I did hear one there. I think I did hear a Samoan gentleman talk about the Tamafainga having multiple wives, and he was kind of like a. I think they said he was a cruel person, from what I understand, Mel. But hey, sounds, when you're achy, you can always you can when you can do whatever you want. Sometimes you can be a little
Crazy.
cruel and stuff. Yeah.
Well, and,
So
and and here's the thing. Why was he able to do that? It sounds like from here because he had the right genetics or the bloodlines,
yeah,
right? That's if
birthright. Yeah.
yes is um oh there we go. Mel answers the question why he didn't get to 100.
Yeah.
I think they finally ran out of patience maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's the see, and this goes to the thing with the whole was it Tokatufa
Yes.
practice. It's it's probably him because he was the most achy in the area. There's a lot of other lesser chiefs wanting to get their, let's just say, the closest to the achy. So they probably gave so many of their daughters and stuff and try to get
For
married to this,
status. Yeah.
that to get status, right? I mean, it goes a lot of ways. I'm sure he wasn't going looking all the time, but I'm just saying that's how people elevate status, is how close you can get bloodline or blood ties to the Eiki. Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. Malo Mel. And then here's another one. I mean, this is kind of a golden little interaction here,
Mm.
right? I'm clicking on the wrong screen. Here's another one, right?
Yeah.
Like these last paragraphs here. The fact that they get on board and they speak Tongan and they say, why do they speak Tongan? Because Tongan was the language of the foreigner. Now
Yeah.
let's just pause right there.
Yeah.
Okay. What we have heard many times, because Ha'amoa is the Samoa, the new interpretation of Samoa is the sacred center, and that the Tu'imanua who exists then, they were the ones who were navigating everywhere. right? And traveling everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If that is true, why is Tongan then the language of the foreigners? What that tells us is they were not the long distance navigators. They were the inter islands in that region. They knew of the Tu'imanua, they knew of all these other Marietoa and all these other chiefs, but the language of the foreigner is Tongan, meaning who's the one doing the long distance traveling?
Mm. Mm.
The Tongans are doing the long distance traveling, right?
Mm.
This also coincides with, remember, that oral history review of the Ha'amoa oral history. What did they say? When they talked about Ha'amoa, Fiji, it was always mythical, right?
Yeah.
But with stuff with Tonga, it was very almost like firsthand, very practical things, which they came to the conclusion, oh, it's because they're getting their information about Fiji and Tahiti from the Tongans. The
Mm.
Tongans are the ones bringing this information because they're the ones going to Fiji. They're the ones going to Tahiti. They're the ones going all over the long distance travel. This is almost another undisputable piece of evidence
Mm.
towards that.
Yeah, and I just may add that the Europeans probably associated Polynesian language they probably as Tongan, right? And that was probably the language that they said this seems to be the language that's kind of used because of probably trading the most, and maybe the rest of Polynesia had understanding of communicating, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the universal language. It's almost like in China, Mandarin is the kind of, or in India, Hindi is kind of like the universal kind of language, but
Yes.
each part have their own kind of unique dialect.
Dialect.
But
100%.
kind of that same idea. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Is that fair enough, Dora? Would you think?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's what we're kind of, I mean, and then this is the other thing, Masi. Look at this. Given the
Mm,
frequent Tongan visits and the prestige associated with Tongan culture in Samoan society. Wait a
mm,
minute. I thought Talakai Faiki was kicked out and Ha'amoa was its own independent nation
not
from the
never to come back.
1100s and never to
Mm,
come back. And that there was this whole separation. But according to the 1800s, that's not what we're seeing.
mm,
What we're seeing is they're like, no, wait a second. They're not tattooing because the Tu'itonga doesn't get tattooed because his blood's sacred. And the other chiefs, high ranking chiefs, including the Tu'imanua, don't get tattoos for the same reason. They're speaking Tongan because it's the language of the foreigners,
mm,
right?
mm,
So they see the Papalangi foreigner, they see the Tongan foreigner, they speak Tongan to both of them,
mm,
looking for the Eiki, right? And then we're seeing that the Tongans are frequently going to Ha'amoa, and we're like, so where is all this sacred center of Polynesia and the great navigators and that and remember this is when the Tu'itonga is in severe
decline.
decline,
Yeah.
severe decline. So imagine going back 200 years.
Yeah.
If the prestige is still there when the Tu'itonga is in decline, imagine, can you imagine what it was like when the Tu'itonga is in its prime?
Mm,
But anyways, I thought this is a very, very insightful little interaction right there.
yeah. Awesome.
Right? All this stuff that we hear online on the sacred center and stuff is kind of debunked in that one interaction alone.
Mm,
All right.
okay.
Right here, excerpt
Excerpt
17.
17. All right. The Samoans, like other Polynesians, had a complex system of beliefs and rituals that structured their social and political life. This system was based on a cosmology that included gods, spirits, and ancestors, with a clear hierarchy of sacred beings and places. The arrival of the Papalangi Europeans was interpreted within this framework, as they were seen as beings with superhuman powers, often associated with the gods or spirits. They used words that were applicable to gods, spirits, and ritual objects. Atua, Tupua, Kalo in the Fijian archipelago. Or alternatively, when they spoke of men, they added men who belong to or come from the Papalangi. Tongan words collected by Cook in 1777 in chapter 11 for discussion of the meaning of the term Papalangi. This linguistic usage indicates that the Samoans did not initially perceive the Europeans as ordinary humans, but as entities connected to their spiritual world. The term papalangi, often translated as sky bursters or people from the heavens, suggests a perception of the Europeans as divine or supernatural beings, which influence the nature of their interactions, including the presentation of young girls in ritual contexts. Tua, any thoughts there?
Yeah, so interesting that this is kind of where it goes into the definition. I really want to highlight here where it says the term papalangi, right? And
Mm,
sky bursters. Remember we talked about where the sky
yes,
and the waters meet, and these are people from beyond that realm.
yes.
So the Tongans, there's strong evidence here that the Tongans are the ones who coined the term papalangi,
Mm,
right? And you notice in other areas like in Fiji, they use the words otu or tupua, very kind of spiritual, that they're gods or whatever.
mm-hmm,
And some people who take the interpretation of papalangi as people from the heavens,
correct.
but it is quite clear from the interactions of the Tongans, they did not perceive the Europeans as spiritual beings or from heaven. They
Yeah, yeah.
perceived them as human beings, obviously from some advanced civilization and stuff, but
Mm,
also the definition of papalangi, that the sky bursters, meaning going beyond the realm that the Tuitonga knows, which is in the spent a lot of it is between the two tropical, right? The two tropical zones on each side of the equator.
mm,
That they were saying these are people from outside those typical areas that the Tuitonga would travel.
would travel,
And
navigate. Yeah.
looking at what the Tongans did with the Europeans when they visited, they traded with them, they gave them, sometimes set them up to be sacked and take their
Yep.
materials. They recognized they had advanced technology, and then all accumulating with Tuitonga Pau's question to Captain Cook: "What
Yep.
are you doing here? Right?
Yep.
What's your purpose of being here?" Right?
That's what conquerors. That's what conquerors
Yes,
say to each other.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like we understand that it is difficult to make these voyages, and that there's always a purpose, right? And you don't spend money usually unless you know you're going to make money. And he's saying you're spending a lot of resources to
To
come
get
out
here.
here because we know that you're beyond where we
Yeah.
typically travel. So you're
Mm,
coming from a very, very far away place. Why are you here? Right? So that's what I kind of take from this, but that's my 2 cents there.
yeah. Couple things, Tua, that I kind of pick out of this. This is like a huge, like the difference with interpretation, and I think this what led to probably people closer to the Tuitonga or followers of the Tuitonga, mostly that which is kind of what Tonga was known for, because I think Tonga was known for as sacking the most ships, like what you mentioned, because they perceived them as humans. It looks like the the Samoans really saw these people as elevated, so their interactions were a lot different, maybe compared to Tongans. And Tongans, let's just say they were playing with them games at the same time, planning their attacks, like Captain Cook, that time with Fee now was able to avoid. But I think this is a big difference with why Tongans were not didn't perceive they perceived them as just a normal human being with resources that were valuable, and they were just gonna take it from them. So many ships were sacked and burned around Tonga, taking these resources. But there's not too many stories of other
Polynesian
Polynesians
islands
early
doing the
contact.
same.
We're talking about
Yeah,
early contact with them doing that because of their perceptions of probably of the Papalangis thinking they were a little bit more than men. Maybe that and that changed when you have a perspective of somebody who's maybe supernatural. You're gonna be more cautious. While in there's many evidence of Tonga not being. They knew these were just people with good resources and they just took advantage of them. And I think you only have that mindset if you've like what you mentioned. You've gone to many different people who are not Polynesians in probably in Asia, in Papua New Guinea, or even to Australia, and you're used to meeting different faces,
different
and
kinds
they
of
just know
people.
different kinds of people, different faces, and like what you said with the whole term of Papalangi coming beyond their scope of what they typically navigated in the Pacific Ocean. So that's just my thoughts there, and maybe the reason why Tongans in particular were not too not too afraid to plan attacks because they bleed like every other human being in the early context. I don't know. That's just my thoughts
No,
there.
100%, 100%. Is it my turn on this one or is it you?
Your turn.
Okay. Excerpt 18. This is from page 123. The relationship between chiefs and commoners in Western Polynesia was historically mediated through religious and ritual practices where chiefs were seen as embodiments of divine authority. The dynamic was central to maintaining social order and legitimizing chiefly power with rituals, often involving offerings and ceremonies that reinforced sacred status of the chiefs. In Western Polynesia, this relationship has continued into the present Samoa and Tonga, even if the divine point of reference is now that of the Bible. This continuity is evident in the way modern Samoan and Tongan societies maintain respect for chiefly titles and roles, often integrating Christian values with traditional protocols. For example, church services and community gatherings involve chiefs in leadership roles, reflecting a blend of old and new systems of authority. Any thoughts on this,
Yeah.
Mr. Aotearoa?
Well, point one, just reminds me of how the Tuitonga, the divine authority, that was very critical. And that's why
Hmm.
that divine authority was the religious. That was the most powerful thing. He was able to delegate the political power to the other dynasties, the Tuihatagalawa and the Tuikanupolu, because that was to run the daily business of the Tuitonga Empire and kept the divine to provide structure, order within the dynasties because the
Hmm.
religion is the most influential and powerful because you've you've gained that, let's just say, authority from the beginning, the Tangaloa, right?
Yeah.
Who was before. So very interesting, and that's what I was thinking in my head reading that one. The third one is it's just how especially many Polynesians have with how they set up their government, and they have their own taste of the or the blend of their traditional um, makeup of their culture and also the Western. I'm thinking like Tonga and Samoa. Samoa having you have to be a local chief, but at the same time you have to be a local chief, but that's the Matai system, and also you gotta go with the Western of democracy of having the most votes within your area, right? That's how the
Combo.
makeup of yes. And then with Tonga is you have the king, the head, and then you also have the people's representative, which is the democracy aspect of it. Let the people choose to vote. Then also you have the hereditary titles, noble titles in Tonga, which is a Tongan old kind of the structure of how Tonga used to be with the king being the head and then the nobles as its support, and then you having the democracy. So it's all that kind of mix between to create what Polynesia is today, mixed with the Western ideas and government structure. So I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts there, Tua. Unless you had anything else, or maybe something you picked on.
No, I think you covered it. That's kind of like the similar thoughts I had. So I think we're good to move on.
All right.
All right. I think this is you, Mr. Atero.
Excerpt 19, page 126. The Tongan religious system was characterized by uh, path- Pantheon of
Pantheon.
God, pantheon of gods and spirits, each with specific roles and domains. These deities were integral to Tongan cosmology, influencing daily life, rituals, and the social structure, with particular gods associated with different islands and activities within the archipelago. In Tonga, for example, Tangaloa was the great god of the sky at Tongatapu, the southern part, but only the god of the craftsmen in the northern part of the archipelago. Elsewhere, he was only one of the four creator gods. Generally speaking, the gods normally lived at Pulotu, an invisible island situated in the west. When the thunder was heard, it was, some Tongans say, the sound of the heated discussions between the gods which reach human ears. This belief in Pulotu as a divine realm underscores the spiritual geography of Tongan cosmology, where the West is associated with the afterlife and divine origins, influencing rituals and myths that connect the living world to the gods. Any thoughts there, Tua?
No, this is interesting. A couple things that stuck out to me was the different interpretations of Tangaloa, right?
Mm,
Some people say thought Tangaloa was god of the sky. And
yeah,
and here's what's interesting. What was the term for the people who come from beyond? Papalangi or sky.
mm,
And
mm,
they also say langi, but I wonder there could be when saying Papalangi because where did Tangaloa come from? From
yeah,
Vaihi, the far,
yeah,
far, far away land. I don't know if there's any connections there.
mm,
But then the other part that stuck out to me, um, it was only the god of the craftsman, which is kind of
interesting.
interesting. There were some ideas, but that could be because who brought the technology of or the first ones coming from a far away. Remember, we talk about the founding fathers,
Yeah,
right? That there's Tangaloa, there's Maui, there's the Haamea, or and the Taula. Those are the founding fathers,
yeah,
and there's an association that the Tangaloa was the head of those, and maybe that's why they say, oh, he's the god of the craftsmen, because when the Tangaloa and Maui and the Haamea came, they brought the technology that resulted in the Polynesian nation or empire being a reality. And
mm,
then once again, Pulotu is an invisible island situated in the rest. Once again, a lot of people they're saying, "Oh, Pulotu is in Fiji. Pulotu means Fiji,"
yeah,
but the Tongans, the navigators, I'm pretty sure they know the difference between a real island and an invisible island, and that
mm,
it's more referencing of the spiritual world and not an actual place on Earth. But that's just the things that stuck out to me, Masi.
yeah. I think yeah, there's probably just the Palangi are just trying the best to understand, thinking that it was gods, but they were just very powerful titles, and thinking that it was gods, especially with the Tangaloa. That part,
Mhm.
that's just kind of what I put out there, and also the misinterpretation of the word pulotu, thinking
Yeah,
that it's out west. It's just a symbolism of west being the end of your life, like we
yeah,
said, of the spiritual life of this world entering the spiritual world,
and
right?
going along with what you said, Masi, the misinterpretation of the term Langi. Oh, where's
Yes.
Tangaloa from? Oh, he's from
Yeah.
Langi.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, one of the ways to it's just kind of like the word Papalangi, right?
Yep.
That if you're not the ones who understand the root word or the real meaning behind Papalangi,
You
you
take
will
the
say, oh,
literal. Yeah.
it's something that touches the skies. And maybe
Yes.
these people are from the skies, but the original people who understand navigation and the earth and regions that no Papalangi is beyond the horizon, beyond the realm of where we're familiar. But when you do a literal translation, it can lead to misunderstanding. Then the term was, oh, these people are from the sky. Well, no,
Yes.
not really. And I think the same thing with Tangaloa. He's from Langi. Oh,
Yes.
so he's a god from the sky, right?
Yes.
And then yet you have another group that says no, it's not that he's a god of the sky, but he's a guy who understands craftsmanship, right?
Mm,
Like crafts, he like technology and building things and putting together as a leader, as a new civilization. That could be Tangalo as well. So kind of interesting to see the different interpretations there.
okay. Very good.
All right. Is it me or you?
Yep.
All
It's
right.
you.
Excerpt 20 from page 127. The use of red in rituals symbolized sacredness and connection to the divine, with materials like pandanus leaf bindings used to envelop offerings representing the body and fertility in Tongan ceremonies. Now, the use of the red braid to envelop the body was already a central ritual element in the great Tongan ceremony of the first fruits. Yams symbolized the body and were entirely swathed in red bindings made from the tender part of the pandanus leaf. The ritual practice highlights the symbolic association between food offerings, the body, the divine blessings, ensuring prosperity and reinforcing social hierarchies in Tongan society. Interesting. Masi?
Interesting. Couple things. Yeah. Couple things. The color red, we all know that's a very important color in the Polynesian practices and of offerings to people of high rank. Um, this goes back to the, with some of the mats that have the red feathers that's still being
Hmm.
used today. Even with your red feathers with the tauvala was a important sign of high valuables that you offer, and people being able to obtain them. You know, that's just the same thing back in these days of how they offered to the, of their offerings to the gods of that time. So yeah, those are the things that I kind of just picked up from these from this expert. Tua, anything else that
Yeah,
anything
well,
that
once
stuck
again,
out?
there's a lot of relationship between the color red in the Americas, especially
Hmm.
in Central America and in South America, that the red is a sacred color, that some of the great high priests and chiefs use the color red for sacredness,
Hmm.
even in the Americas. I did not know that they would take the ufi and wrap braid it with red pandanus
Ah.
leaves, right?
Mm.
That's so that was I never knew that.
Mm.
Um, and also I find it interesting that red is also the color of the blood and that the blood was sacred, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then I'll tie it back to this. I know it sounds crazy. A lot of people kind of think it's like outrageous for us to make this claim. But do you think when you understand all that history, the sacredness of blood and the body, and that when the Christians come and they say that God came down and spilt his blood, and it is by the blood of Christ that your sins are forgiven,
Mm.
and that you're able to go to Purotu
Mm-hmm.
because of the blood of Christ. Don't you see the parallels here? Like if you're a person who's familiar with this, right? And you understand the sacred nature of blood and how blood is sacred, and that's what makes you sick, and that's why the spilling of blood from someone who is sacred is a big taboo. It's something that is extremely important, that all of a sudden when you hear about that, our brother from the Offside podcast who says the white man's God,
Yeah.
right? Now imagine if you're a Taula or the Tuitonga or from Mua, La Paja area, and you are very entrenched in this culture that it's in every presentation of the rituals for the first fruits, the inasi and the polo polo, but especially the polo polo. You think they wouldn't recognize those parallels? I think they would recognize that. I don't
They
know,
weren't
like
capable to. It was just a coincidence.
just
It's just a
savages.
coincidence. They were not capable. No way.
So
No way.
yeah,
No way. They can
um,
sell. They can sell around the world, but they can't. They can't.
they
They
can't
can't
make
have
that
that
connection,
understanding.
right?
No.
Because that's the white man's god. That's the
Yeah.
white man's
Yeah.
god. Here's another comment from Mel. Appreciate Mel.
Hmm.
She says northern part Tokelau, south part Tonga, west is Fiji, and east Tahiti. And this is the interesting thing, Masi, that I'm starting to recognize. And this idea first came back from Mel's research.
Yeah.
It she brings up a point here that I think at some point we need to explore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It seems like Tokelau was kind of like the capital for like the northern portion. And I want to say like state or district or whatever you call, because there's a lot of using of Tokelau as the center point for like the Solomon Islands, right?
To enter Vanuatu, I'm thinking
Tuvalu,
like.
Vanuatu area,
Uh,
even into a little bit into to Tahiti. Tokelau seems to play a central role in there. It's almost like saying the island Tokelau is like the capital of that region, right?
okay. Okay.
Fiji being the capital of the western region, going into Melanesia, deeper parts of Melanesia, and going west, and then Tahiti being the center of the eastern portion. You could almost make
Okay.
an
Okay.
argument that those are like the provinces and the center for each province. It's an idea. Don't know, needs to be developed a little bit more, but especially when we look at the oral history of Momo, I think it was Momo who said, "Hey, the nation's gotten so big, it's pretty taxing for the furthest parts of the nation to come to Tongatapu every year, twice a year." That he started to say we need to institute region, capital regions, so to speak, and have those localized area instead of bringing their tribute to Tonga twice a year, bring it into those localized quote unquote capitals where family members of the Tuitonga who were highly related to him were stationed out there, who had the knowledge of long distance travel. And then maybe it was only those groups or those families bring a certain portion
To
of
Tonga.
those to Tongatapu. And what it does is it makes it more logistically feasible, right? To not have every representative of every island come, but instead you go to one regional location, then that regional location brings a certain portion of those to Tongatapu and give it. But just some thoughts there, and I
Yeah.
don't know if
Yeah.
anything else
Well,
to add to that.
yeah, I can see Fiji and Tahiti, but definitely, because like I said, I think it was that episode that you delved into what Mel has researched. Still learning more about Tokelau, and that could be a spot when like you mentioned of a region of gathering stuff, kind of like was it La Yatea? They kind of mentioned
Tapu
in
Tapuatea, yeah,
Tapu
in
Tapu
Tahiti.
Atea. Yeah. So I think furthermore, we talked about this, Mel, the more that everyone can get to know about Tokelau, because I think Tokelau is one probably the few that many people don't know about its
Hmm.
contribution to the Tuitonga Empire or the Polynesian nation, and its contribution. So yeah, definitely with the more we go about this, we'll learn more. And I know Tu and I have discussed about looking into more Eastern Polynesia and finding out more, because there has been a lot of discussion as a separate nation of our brothers and sisters Eastern Polynesia. So that's kind of once we're kind of done with this kind of talking point about the Tui Manua and Ha'amoa's history intertwined with the Tui Tonga. We'll be moving on to the Eastern Polynesia. But Mel's also mentioned trade wind directions. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And I think what she's trying to point out here is maybe these localized trade winds make it easier to travel within these regions,
Mm,
right?
so it's
And
not a
maybe
burden, eh?
yes. So here's another thing too, kind of going along, Mussy, where you said Water Bears here speaks up. He says Ha'amoa is the heart of Polynesia.
Hey,
Eh?
I'm not. I'm gonna just go with what our PR says. Okay,
Yes. No. Well,
whatever that
let's give
water
it.
bear says.
We have to. Yeah.
Eh?
Let's be cognizant of the PR because he has a reason. This
Yeah.
is the follow up.
According to modern oral traditions of TikTok,
See,
Maria
you
Laki,
gotta
water
give our
bear.
PR guys the reasonable doubt. You have to give them.
Yep,
You
yep.
know. So Maria, Water
Always good to
Bears,
have you,
thank
water
you.
bears. Malo, ikaw, Mike.
So yeah, we'll slide down to the next one. I think this is you, Mr. Atero.
All right. Excerpt 21. High chiefs in Tonga were revered as incarnations of divine principles, with their bodies considered sacred and untouchable, reflecting their status as living links to the gods. The category of the Tongan High Chief is called the category of the chiefs who have incarnated. Sino Eiki, body is Sino. This terminology emphasizes the embodiment of divine essence in chiefly figures, underpinning the taboos and rituals that surround them, maintaining their elevated position in society. Anything tua that sticks
No,
out.
pretty straightforward. I don't have any beefs or quorums here. It's pretty straightforward. This is what made someone achy, right?
Yeah,
It was the blood, and it's not anyone's blood. It's the Tuitonga specifically, right? Which is why Tokatufa existed, which
yes,
why certain chiefs, if the closer you were to the Tuitonga, the more achy you were,
yep,
right?
yeah.
So no, nothing really to add there unless you had something, Mussy.
No, just go back on our sharing just earlier in this live digital kava session on the tattooing, right? You don't tattoo people with high rank status, Akis. Usually, if you are tattooed, you are you're kind of like a tui polu. You're still a high chief, but not as divine as what I'm saying that you spill your blood, because that was Aki, the thing. So I don't know. That's just me. That's my
Yeah.
interpretations from that.
10-4. This next one, excerpt 22, page 132. Polynesian narratives often interpreted European arrivals with mythological lenses, attributing superhuman qualities to visitors and integrating them into local cosmologies. It is in this light that we might be able to understand an account from 1840 relating how a Tongan chief would have interpreted the arrival of Cook 70 years earlier. The old chief gave me the following account of Captain Cook's visit. I was a little boy when Captain Cook and Captain Clark came. I went on board ship and took up a nail. Man called me thief. He says, me no thief. This account illustrates how Tongans retrospectively framed European encounters within their cultural narratives, viewing visitors as extraordinary beings while navigating misunderstandings like accusations of theft. Man, might have to go back and dig this a little bit more. It seems a little bit disjointed, but
Mm,
I because it doesn't make sense. How does someone, he obviously learns what a thief is later, right?
yeah,
Like someone who steals says, I wasn't a thief. I just picked up a nail,
me no
and it
tea.
was kind of me no thief. But I
Mm,
don't know how that correlates to that means the Palangis were mythological beings. I don't know.
yeah. Well, the thing that stood out was the point two was I'm sure is this I'm trying to think, is this referring to the younger Finau during the when his father was the chief and the Captain Cook's coming in? There's no reference to it, but I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's the reference as Captain Cook coming earlier because he did go. Is it twice or three times? Twice that he harbored in Tonga, but I don't know. That's
Three
just me.
times, and he was in Ha'apai, so maybe it was when
Yeah,
Finau was there. Maybe it's the same Finau guy
yeah,
that said, "Hey, I'm related to Finau," and he just died. And maybe he's relating when he was a young kid
young
getting on
kid
the boat.
going get
So
on the boat. So
okay,
yeah, that was just thing that stood out, but nothing too major to it.
all right. This one's for you, Mr. Atero, I believe.
Excerpt 23, page 144. In various Polynesian societies, Europeans were associated with specific gods, reflecting local cosmologies where foreigners were seen as manifestations of divine siblings or lesser deities. In some parts of Tonga, too, where the great creator was the god Hikureo, it was said that the Europeans were on a boat from the god Tangaloa, the younger brother of Hikureo. One of the first Western missionaries to land there in 1797 wrote later, Tangaloa resides in the sky. He sends forth the thunder and lightning, and when a thunderstorm occurs, it was supposed that he is killing a chief. Tangaloa is a god of the carpenters, whose business is the most honorable employment in the Friendly Islands. He is supposed to be the god of all the foreigners, whom he has taught to construct such beautiful vessels. Captain Cook and others were supposed to have come from the sky, sent by Tangaloa. The heathen will sometimes use this plea for not worshipping the god of the foreigners. You serve Tangaloa, the saucy younger brother. We serve Hikureo, the elder. Why should we leave the elder to serve the younger brother? This theological argument reflects the resistance to Christian conversion, framing it as a choice between elder and younger divine brothers, preserving loyalty to traditional gods. All right, there's a lot there, Dua. What you think?
The first thing is I see a headshot that Hikuleo is a female god. Bing, that one's out of the water, right?
Uh,
Like this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. We now are hearing stories of Hikuleo was a female god, and
it's the
how do we know
figurines,
that?
Dua. It's
Yeah,
the
well,
figurines.
that's what I'm getting to. And then we said, well, how did you guys get to that? Well, there's some female figurines. Okay, who said that that was
Don't
Hikuleo?
Hikureo.
Oh, it was just a Papalangi academic who said, well, they seem to be like godlike figures. Maybe no, that's Hikuleo. Zero real evidence that that
Yeah,
figurine that's female is Hikuleo,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
here we are clearly they're talking about Tangaloa and Hikuleo as males,
yeah,
right? And here it's clear here that there are some who clearly observe Tangaloa is not on the same level as Hikuleo. The
yeah,
Tangaloa, though great, once again is a great carpenter, right? He can bring technology, he can make things out of materials, but he's not Hikuleo, which is the supreme God.
yeah.
Which once again comes back to our discussion on Hikuleo was
The original,
the
right? And
original.
over,
He's the one who guided Tangaloa and
yes, the
Maui
original God.
and the
Yep.
Haamea who came on boats to Polynesia, guided them to Tonga, where they settled, and then used that new technology, new political structure, new social structure, this new um, capability to navigate and to establish trade routes and to manage to establish a new civilization in Polynesia in the Pacific Islands. So that's what I kind of saw there. It's like, yeah, headshot, pink, Tangaloa as a female, and that's where the Fahu system comes. Yeah, we can probably put that to bed with
Yeah.
this, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that came about to this is, with the whole figurines and people saying that's Hikudeo. Remember, during the time when the influence of the Tuitonga is really decreasing, so there's really no enforcement of Hikudeo because the caretaker of the god of Hikureo was the Tuitonga and enforcing that. And then, there were, it was kind of the part of the reason too of why Dubo the First did a lot of cleansing in the civil wars, because during that time, a lot of the different parts
Yeah.
within the Tuitonga of Tonga right now was doing ancestors. And who knows, that figurine could have been maybe the most beautiful woman in a certain region or thing, and they wanted to have maybe all their women in that
Remember
village
her.
look remember her,
Yeah.
and that's why I don't know. I'm just saying there was a lot of worship instead of worshiping Hikureo, the original and only true God, and then a lot of them turn into ancestors and stuff. And look, and even and then that probably didn't help with the uh, misunderstanding from the Europeans writing in their books, and also probably interjecting it in their in their dealings with other Polynesian neighbors when they came in contact, saying that Tangaloa was a god when it was just a title. And a lot of that thing mixing and happening, and the own Polynesian people doing their own ancestors kind of caused a lot of confusion and the loss of understanding of Hikureo, the meaning of Hikureo. That's just me kind of
Yeah.
throwing my idea there that kind of stuck out.
No, 100%. I'm on board with that. All right. Look, this one looks like a little bit longer. Excerpt 24, page 153. The Tongan chiefly system, with its sacred and secular branches, was a complex hierarchy that fascinated early European observers. The Tuitonga, as the sacred king, was seen as a divine figure, while the Tuihatakalaua and later the Tuikanukupolu represented more secular and political power. The
Right there.
dual, here we go. The dual structure allowed for a balance of spiritual and temporal authority, which was often misunderstood by Europeans who saw it through their own monarchical lenses. It was the same again not many years later when the Tongan chiefs, hearing about that other great European chief, namely Napoleon Bonaparte, oh Yahweh, made him one of theirs. Oh Yahweh,
Oh,
Napoleon is
oh.
Tongan. As they told missionary Lormer Fiesen in the middle of the 19th century. Oh Yahweh, oh 19th century, we didn't know Napoleon was Tongan.
Alupetala had time me go ahead even to now. That's where we get it from. Go ahead.
Eh, this narrative has not been missed by Salins, and I summarize here from his précis of the account given by Faisen by a Tongan informant. Napoleon's mother, explained the Tongan, was a very tall American woman, oh Yahweh,
Maria.
who fell pregnant during a call at Tonga when the first American whalers began putting into port in this archipelago. The woman returned to America and gave birth to a child. Some years later, a number of Frenchmen went to America to seek help against their English enemies because their priest had foretold that they would find there a child who would lead them to victory.
Maria.
After different incidents, they found the child. He had been motionless and silent from birth. But when the French explained the purpose of their visit, he got up and spoke, revealing for the first time which his height, which was such it went beyond that of any human being. Man, yeah, this is He-Man. Thalen makes a comment in passing about the height of the King of Tonga. So was King George to Poe. It might be noted, while the sudden metamorphosis from an abnormal passivity to Herculean action is a common Polynesian theme, a device for revealing the superhuman qualities of the hero. The rousing of the warrior from the stable condition of the autonomous sacred chief is also iconic of the reversal of hierarchy under discussion here. The Tongan, having related the warrior exploits of Napoleon, finished by saying that if the French freely admitted that the royal clan of Napoleon came from an island, they were lying about the location of this island. It was not where they came from, but in the Tongan archipelago. The mythologization of Napoleon as Tongan born illustrates how Polynesians appropriated European figures into their own genealogies, asserting cultural superiority and integrating global events into local narratives.
Wow.
Hey, oh yeah, well, you got a big one to respond to here.
Yeah, yeah. This is very interesting. Um, especially
Hmm.
with Napoleon, because I did hear some oral history of, I guess, of a mother being a nun that was based in the islands in Polynesia, fell pregnant, went back. I didn't know that there, this is a new one going to the Americas, but went back to France, married, and then had Napoleon, and then kind of Napoleon taking off there. But this is another one going to the Americas that I didn't know, and the French having some prophecy that they had to go to America to seek some help. They're going to meet a child. Hey, it just shows you this is very interesting that Polynesia, and this is Polynesians being able to assert. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know. I really just don't know. This is to me. This is just a talanoa, and talanoa loy, but talanoa moonye ilo, talanoa heriaki. Who knows? Eh? And it just seems like it's pretty amazing with the cultural, like what I think that it said, that the ability to have that cultural understanding to interject and assert your narrative even to the most powerful uh, places in Europe, because you come from a powerful place in Polynesia in the Pacific, because
Exactly.
you can talk and think and even aspire to that, even to that same level, because not if you were let's just say a savage kind of place, you don't get to that level to aspire to talk in that narrative about potentially something like this even happening, right? But I don't know, that's just me too, thinking out
No,
loud, and
that's
share
interesting
that. I don't
because
what's your thoughts?
well, my first comment is I'm gonna use what a lot of these people who try to say they have receipts, they
Yeah.
go to pull up a reference of somebody who told a story to somebody, and because it was recorded, it must be true, right?
Yeah.
Like the story of, Tonga Fusifonua was in Samoa and he was betrayed by his wife, and Maui had to go to Haamoa and get the hook to pull up Tonga. And that's evidence that Tonga was founded by the Haamoa, right? Because
Hmm.
it was recorded. If I were to take their same logic, well, I guess what, man? Napoleon
It's Tongan. Let's take
is
it
my
like that,
two
eh?
favorite things. My two favorite things. Napoleon is American and Tongan. How
He was
could you
never
go
really
wrong with
French.
that?
He was never really French then, eh?
You know, with my grandpa Horace Kimball, he would believe this story because he's like the French never do anything good anyway.
Yeah,
So it would make perfect sense
he would make
that
perfect sense
it
for
would
him.
make perfect sense that the one of the greatest French generals, and eventually he was the emperor, right? He
Emperor.
was the
Yep.
ruler.
Yep.
He had American origins. So that's the first thing. And I think you bring up a good point there, Masi, is
Yeah.
this is, is he talking like that because the only place you hear of such exploits are coming from Tonga? And if he's
Mhm.
hearing of some great emperor or chief who's doing
Other
these
side of the world.
amazing things, he's like, well, the only people we know of are the Tongans who do that. So all of a sudden it's like, well, in that case, Bonaparte must be
Tongan.
Napoleon must be Tongan.
Yeah, that's funny. That
Yeah,
is
that is
hilarious.
pretty hilarious, dude. That don't give a pare, eh. We should find out who this Tongan informant is.
Yes, because
Because
when it's written down, it's a fact that it happened. Eh? Uh,
yeah, this is good stuff. Mari don't give a pare tamatong ako ini.
yeah, that
That
is
is pretty
hilarious.
funny.
All
All
right.
right, excerpt 25, Mr.
Yep.
Atero.
Excerpt 25, page 155. Media representations of Polynesia often blended fiction with reality, portraying royal protocols that mirrored English traditions. adopted during the 19th century to legitimize local monarchies in the face of colonial pressures. Fictional images, but ones whose settings were relatively faithful to the Polynesian scene. American films of the 1960s set in Hawaii, and especially documentaries about the present king of Tonga, often filmed by the BBC when he was one of the most was it obese men in the
Mhm.
world. He has recently been dieting, have shown the extent to which the protocol of the Royal Court of England was followed to the letter in Polynesia. Military regalia, ceremonial swords, and evening robes
Mhm.
included. This was true for the Hawaii of the 19th century. It is still true of the Tongan court. This adoption of European protocols in Tonga and Hawaii reflects a strategic cultural adaptation, blending traditional chiefly systems with colonial influences to maintain sovereignty and prestige in a changing world. Any thoughts there, Tua?
Yeah, I mean, this is what you have to do is in order to know how to navigate a new power or a new idea.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the story of the Napoleon, right?
Bonaparte.
Bonaparte. In order to understand how to navigate this new world that the Western civilization is bringing, you have to understand and make those connections. Okay, we have a king, they have a king, right? We see that they have certain advantages. In order for us to protect ourselves, we need to be on the same level of communication, right? So that we
Yeah.
can recognize each other. Because if we don't, once again,
Mm,
one of the strengths that the Tongan leadership identified is, like Napoleon Bonaparte, identify the area that the battle can take place where you have the most advantage, right? And it was very clear that the Tongan leadership identified we cannot go into direct conflict with these people and win,
yeah.
right? We have to find a battlefield that we have a chance. And what did they recognize?
Perception.
The political structure
Mm,
and how we can align ourselves so that the battle is in the battle of ideas, like we're doing
yes.
in the Kava session. It's in the battle of politics, of building relationships, right? And being able
Mm,
to communicate to give yourself a fighting chance to maintain sovereignty, right? You know, we hear a lot of people, it's like, oh, you know, the Tui Tonga and the Tui Polo and stuff, they were just a bunch of chickens. Look at the Maoris went and fought, Ha'amoa went and fought, right? They fought in direct conflict. And then the question always arises in my head, and what was the final outcome?
yeah.
You
Yeah. It
know?
was not good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. And then you look at Tonga, Hawaii survived for a while, and unfortunately they crumbled.
Hmm.
But Tonga is still active and independent to this day, and that means a lot. And I think it's a lot because they were able to make those connections and understand, number one, like the other thing of the story earlier about Napoleon Bonaparte, that doesn't sound like Tongans think Europeans are from the sky and
Mm.
supernatural beings. It sounds like they're saying, no, we're just the same. And by the way,
He's talking.
Bonaparte must be Tongan because that's
Yes.
what Tongans can do.
Yes, and they already started Tonganizing words. They already said Bonaparte. He's the pate. You know? He's from Tonga. Bonaparte is the Tongan name. Bonaparte. You know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tama Tonga na
Maria.
yan.
Yeah.
But that's really funny.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts. Masi, what are you? Anything to add to that?
No, I mean, to me, it's all about projecting. Like what you said, it's you have to be perceived that you're on the same level. You know, it's all in the ideas. When you get that, it's even images. That's what they printed and painted. That was projected throughout the world, and you're on the same level. When leaders see this, okay, this is the person that is on the same level, and we can deal with them. And Tonga was had that
Successful in doing that.
yes, and had that idea that was projected to the world, right? I think in the civil wars in many of the Polynesian islands, that was, other than Hawaii, that was able to at least make it a kingdom and unified to one. Many of the Polynesian islands had several high chiefs, and they didn't, they start. It's easy to to kind of colonize when you just pick the top two chiefs and you separate it with certain Western powers, and then they kind of lose influence, and then you either separate them and then you kind of conquer, right, and colonize them, which is very different when you have a singular ruler and you project the same authority and power that you have, just like a king or queen in Europe. That's much easier to deal with the political pressures and maintaining sovereignty. So I don't know,
Well, and I'll
that's what
add
I
to this, Masi, and this is one of, I believe, one of the golden nuggets that has come from our kava sessions, our digital kava sessions. Laufiri Tonga recognized that, right?
yeah.
You can't have, in this new world, you can't have two heads,
Mm,
right? You
mm,
can't separate the spiritual from the temporal
mm,
anymore, because he
mm.
recognized that. He probably, like I said, I guarantee I could almost put my money on it.
Yeah,
The French are trying to tell Laufiri Tonga, we'll back you, right?
yeah,
Or the Catholics. We
yeah.
got the Catholics. We'll back you.
Yeah,
Then you
biggest
have the,
religion in the world, right?
yeah,
Probably at that time in
yes.
Christian.
You have
Yeah,
the Methodists
yeah.
and the Anglicans with
To pull
Tupou
the
the
first.
First saying, we'll back you. Do you see what would have happened if Laufiri Tonga said, we're not going to unify?
Yeah,
What happened everywhere else would have happened in Tonga. But what
yeah,
does Laufiri Tonga say? We're going to sacrifice the Tu'i Tonga title, because the truth is, Tupou the First can never take it,
yeah.
right? Because what makes him Eiki? The
It's
blood.
his blood.
You can't, that's not something you can win in a battle,
Yeah.
right? And so that's one of the things that, like we're saying, we have to give these guys their credit, man. They were not dummies. They understood what was happening and what needed to happen, and then to have the vision and the humility to make it happen. That's not, as far as I'm concerned, that's not normal human behavior. That
Mm,
is spiritual behavior.
mm.
And that, to me, you know, that's probably, I mean, Tupou the First must have had to have recognized that, not just because he was Christian, but to see that happen from the Tuitonga to self-sacrifice his role, it probably put a big burden on Tupou the First to be like, man, this is a big deal. And that's why he gives Tonga to God, because he's like, that's the only way. I've already seen miracles just to get here,
Mm.
and we're going to need miracles moving forward. But that's what kind of came to my
Awesome.
mind from that.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right. Is it me or is it you on this one?
Yeah, your one.
Okay. Excerpt 26, page 160. In Samoa, tapa, bark cloth, and fine mats were key ceremonial items used in exchanges to symbolize social bonds and status through
Mm,
their use, though their use varied across Polynesia. In neighboring Tonga and Fiji, however, both tapa and fine mats are used in abundance. Interesting.
mm,
This abundance in Tonga and Fiji underscores the regional variations in material culture, where these items play central roles in rituals, marriages, and political alliances, reflecting deeper cultural interconnectedness.
mm. Okay, so what I'm picking up here is Fiji and Tonga very often applied the practice of tapa cloth in all their protocols and marriages and alliances and kind of thing.
And it was
And
common,
and it was
common
common.
use.
And they're saying, and this is what the book say, or this first encounters in Samoa with the Europeans is saying that Samoa's fine mats were key ceremonial items, but symbolize social bands and status through their very cross Polynesia. Okay, interesting. So I would think that Samoa would use it up pretty often too, but It's pretty
Yeah,
interesting that they're saying just Tongan and
especially since
Fiji.
Samoa is known for the fine mats, right?
Yes, that's what they're known for. So maybe there's, I don't know, maybe misunderstandings there. But to my knowledge, that the most treasured Samoan, uh, let's just say, uh, treasured mats or gifts is the fine mat, the ie tonga, like
Tonga.
the ie tonga.
Mm. Okay.
All right,
All right.
excerpt 27,
Yep.
page 187. The term Papalangi emerged in Western Polynesia to describe Europeans, rooted in early contacts and spreading through regional networks, embodying perceptions of outsiders as sky originating beings. Europeans have been labeled Papalangi in Western Polynesia, written Papalangi in Tongan, Papalangi in Samoan. Apparently, since the early contacts, the word is already mentioned in Cook's narrative. When James Cook was in Tonga in 1777, he noted that this word was used to refer to his expedition as well as to the coming of European boats long before him. This could only have been the Dutch expeditions of the 17th century, the last being Tasman expedition more than a century before in 1643. The Tongan said Cook's transcription Goivaka, Goivaka no Papalangi, the boats of from the Papalangi. We shall return to the discussion of the translation. This early usage indicates that the term predated Cook's arrival, likely originating from Dutch contacts, and was applied to both people and their goods, influencing Polynesian categorizations of Europeans. Anything, Tua, that kind of
Yeah. I mean, this once
stuck out?
again reaffirms that the term Papalangi was established well before contact with Ha'amoa, right? Which further
Mm,
points to that the term Papalangi is a Tongan word that comes from Tonga because what the first contacts with Ha'amoa are late 18th century, early 19th century,
mm,
and the first contacts with the Dutch are in the 17th century, and Captain Cook comes in the 18th century, close to 100 years later, and
mm,
he already knows that the term Papalangi exists before he even gets there,
mm.
right? So that's the big thing I kind of took from that is this further solidifies that Papalangi is a Tongan originated
Yeah,
word.
yeah. And I'm gonna, that's one idea. I'm thinking, because of Polynesians probably going to Asia or even maybe some parts of the Americas. Because when did the Spanish even get to the Central America? What year was that? Do any idea? Could the Cortes expedition in
I want to say
get
it's
to?
like 15th century, 16th century.
I'm just throwing out an idea. It could be from the Tasman thing, or it could be they probably heard stories when they went to Central or South America of these white white colored folks, and maybe say they got the term papalangi from. I don't know. I'm just saying they're saying that it's most likely from Tasman from his encounter from his coming in 1643. But I'm just saying, hey, man, if we're traveling people, they probably heard it with maybe earlier signs of in the Americas before or
Yeah,
maybe somewhere else. I don't know. I'm just projecting some another
could be.
idea. I don't know,
Yeah,
but I'm just saying that's another idea.
Cortez arrives in the Americas in 1519, so 16th century.
Yeah, that's much what.
So 100 years, a hundred
Yeah,
years before the Dutch get to Tonga.
came came first sighted. Yeah,
So very
so
possible, very possible.
that's what I'm just saying. I just another idea out there because I do believe
Oh,
even that time Polynesians were traveling pretty regularly to Vaihi.
this is the last one. 28.
All right, all right. Is this you, Tua?
Yes, excerpt 28 from page 188. The term Papalangi spread from Tonga to Samoa through inter-island interactions, becoming a standard designation for Europeans by the early 19th century. In the Samoan context, the earliest published regarding of the word seems to date from a book written in 1837 by the first missionary to Samoa, John Williams. In that text, Williams recalled that he heard the word when he arrived for the first time in Samoa in 1830. Before arriving in Samoa, Williams had met in Tonga a Samoan man named Fawea. This man, who had been away from Samoa for some years, was happy to board William's ship. When the party landed in Samoa in Savaii, Fawea addressed his fellows with a speech mentioning the great powers of the Papalangis. A footnote that the term means white men. This encounter demonstrates how the term was used in everyday speech to convey awe and recognition of European technological superiority.
Okay. Yep. No, I think that's pretty self-explanatory there. Obviously, when you coin the term, from what you know that it was out of your scope, the papalangi these people are coming from, then it evolved to their technology and everything that kind of comes from them, right? And even to the new term of just saying that that's the white man with the papalangi. But that's pretty self-explanatory there. I don't know if you had anything else to it.
Yes, closing thoughts for me. This is probably the last time we're going to have a planned discussion around solidifying or challenging the idea that Ha'amoa was the center of the Polynesian Empire and that, you know, Tuna and Fata, quote unquote, expelled Tonga and freed Ha'amoa from the Tu'itonga, and that the Eiki comes from Ha'amoa rather than
Mm-hmm.
Tonga. There, I'm pretty satisfied that we have done a reasonable effort to ask those questions, to be bold, right? To be curious about what the truth is. And I feel pretty comfortable to say we've put this Tu'imanua Sacred Samoa Center, the role of tattooing, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of other things. I think we've kind of put that to bed. We might answer some questions here and there and things that pop up, but it's time to just say the evidence is overwhelming that
Mm-hmm.
there was a Polynesian nation, it existed, and that the capital of the Polynesian nation was Tongatapu, and that Tangaloa, Maui, and Haamea or the Taula are the founding fathers of the Polynesian Empire and civilization, and that it landed and dispersed from Tonga throughout the Polynesian geographic regions. And I'm glad and ready to move on. I think
Mm.
we're ready to move on and maybe focus a little bit more on Eastern Polynesia because there is that idea out there that there was a nation, but the head was in Tapu Tapu Atea, which was the
Mm.
head of the octopus, and that the tentacles of the octopus went to Tonga, Samoa, and all these other parts, and
Mm.
that's where the Polynesian civilization and empire was headquartered and began from. Even to some people saying that it was a separate nation. But those are my closing thoughts. I'm very thankful to Samoa POV, I think is his name, for
Okay.
recommending this book.
Oh, awesome.
I think it
Malo.
was very, very informative and glad we were able to walk through it. And appreciate your
Mm.
time, Mr. Atearoa, to close out the part two of walking through these references and quotes of Tonga in the book. Those are
Awesome.
those are
Nope.
my closing thoughts, Masi.
Nope. Thank you, Tua, for all you do and for spearheading this. Very much appreciated. Also, thank you to the our viewers, especially the was it Samoan POV, suggesting he's like him and many of our followers and viewers. of the live digital Kava session on the Polynesian Nights podcast, bringing your ideas. We really appreciate that because it allows us to have a dialogue between us and you, and just learning more of our Polynesian history. Looking forward to the next topic, Tua, like what you said, get to the French Polynesia. Maybe that's why they feel like it's separate. It's still under the French, Tua. French Polynesia. There's already a barrier right there with the French, right? Before we get to the
Maybe
Polynesia. And
maybe
maybe
it's
that's
the
why they
descendants of Bonaparte who came back.
Bonaparte. Yeah. Maybe Bonaparte heard it. Maybe Bonaparte heard that this narrative was going, that he was a son of the of Tonga, and said, "Man, I don't know about this," and then colonized the eastern side of Polynesia or something. Who knows? Eh? Just to say he's like, I've taken over this part, but we'll see. But I'm looking forward to kind of delve into the different parts. And like what you said, Tua, I'm very satisfied with the information. I think in the court of law, in the Palangi courthouse, we've presented
Woo!
so many episodes with evidence of what we found, oral history, even written documents. I don't know, so many, just with our insights, and also having people like our viewers suggesting ideas and materials to bring to the table to have a discussion in the kava session in front of everybody. So looking forward to then. Appreciate the viewers. Always appreciate your guys' questions and followings and comments, and sharing this material. We've been getting a lot of interest from people wanting to join the Polynesianized podcast to share their stories and their talanoa, and we're looking forward to meeting them and also sharing that interview and talanoa and discussion with everybody once we come to that time. But yeah, the three questions we kind of leave with everyone that to allow always mention, and it's very important, is be bold, ask the hard questions, and what's the third one, Tua?
Stay curious.
Stay curious and ask the hard questions and be bold. Off to everybody. Until the
Ovatu.
next one.
Peace.